Hey guys, welcome back. And this one's going to be a two-parter. I know it's crazy. It's because I've got so much value to provide everyone here with. So the reason why I'm wearing a hat is because I want to designate the phase in which I'm in, so that you guys can also, over time, see how I change between the different phases. So this beanie, this is the Brixton beanie, but it's also the um, it's the project management and learning to drive beanie. Now I'll try and change it up. I'll try and wear a different item of clothing. I'll try and like maybe put a poster up, like like something like here, something like that. And yeah, so you'll be able to see each time I change something up. But yeah, today is the 21st. It's about 5:30, but you'll be seeing this on the 24th, and then maybe the next one will be coming out on the 3rd. But I thought with this one, I'd share some of the things I've been learning about in my project management job. And this particularly is concerned with those. This is helpful for those who are. This is particularly helpful for those who need some kind of form of leadership. Now, everyone's going to experience leadership at some point in their life, whether it's like being a parent, whether it's being an older sibling, whether it's even like helping a stranger out on the street. You've got to know how to deal with other people and kind of like work with them in a certain way to like get a certain goal. So yeah, leadership is unless you're following someone, you are doing the leading. So and yeah, it's important that we can all learn how to lead, because we all kind of want to get things, and we don't always want to do what everyone else wants to do. And so in order to be able to lead other people and show them a particular way we could do something, and if they'd enjoy doing it as well, then you can do these things this way. So I'll flip it over, do that one, and then bring that up there, and then we swap that over there, and then there we go. So as you can see, I'm such a good host. I've pre-planned all this. So we could have looked at Maslow, we could look at like racy charts, we could look at Herzberg, but I wanted to focus on McClelland at the moment, because I want to break this down into essentially motivation and kind of competency or learning. And I think that this is really helpful to learn. This whole thing is important to learn for yourself and for others, because what I'm going to teach over these next two courses is something I've been learning from the project management stuff. It's not something I have extensive knowledge on, but it is something that I think has been really helpful, and it's something I want to kind of start applying to my life as well. So the first half we'll look at motivation, and this is how you can understand motivation yourself, and this is also how you can understand motivation in other people, because then if you can understand how you're motivated, you can plan your life around these ways to get yourself motivated to do what you want to do. And if you can know what motivates other people, then you can set up that scenario where they will then do that thing that you kind of want them to do. Then the next thing is competency, and this isn't necessarily about like these bits I'll go over. They're not necessarily about knowing how to be properly competent, or like the stages to gaining competency. They're not about the stages to gaining, but they're the stages of it. So you'll kind of have to learn it. Well, you just learn through repetition, and these are the stages that learning goes through. I think this is like incredibly helpful information actually. But so we'll start with McClelland. Now I could always do videos about these guys if you would be interested in watching them, but I want to start with McClelland because I think he's interesting, and he also kind of represents a larger point that I've been trying to think about and develop like over these last couple of years. And so he argues that there are kind of three, at least from my knowledge, and I want to read his stuff like properly later on in the future, but from what I'm getting so far, he argues that there are three main motivators to a person in their daily life. and this is achievement, this is power, and this is affiliation. We feel like we're motivated to do things because we want to be affiliated with people. This might be we want to be affiliated with the cool kids in school. This might be that we want to be affiliated with our family and have a nice dynamic with them. This might be that we want to be affiliated with billionaires and sip drinks in Dubai or something. There's also achievement, which is particularly you're motivated to excel at something within a given environment. So this might be you really want to get really good at archery, or this might be that you want to get really good at baking a cake. And then there's power, and power is particularly different because it's not really about achieving something within a certain grounds or something. It's about being able to control the grounds itself. Power might be you're motivated to become you're motivated to, rather than to score really highly in the archery, you're motivated to gain power in the archery like community, so that your ways that you think that archery should be conducted are then put into regulations. Power can also be like, it can also be seen as like a kind of a stoic thing, like having power over yourself. Or like, as you can see a lot in like various religions, about being able to have control over yourself. And then, or it could also be, like I said, in the case of the archery, it's about having institutional power, where you want to install things for what you see as the better thing to, like, for society. And now, within us, he argues that all of these are dominant. There are, for instance, me becoming a YouTuber, it's because I want to have a certain amount of power. It's because I want to be able to earn a certain amount of money that I can then affiliate with other people, and I can spend that money on them and make their lives better. And it's also about maybe achieving, and I can't think how this would be about achieving, but maybe it's like me feeling like technically proud of the way I executed something. I know that in my own life these also differ in variations. Like, often when I'm doing sports, I don't really care about like necessarily achieving something within certain grounds. Like, I care more about how much I can inflict myself on the world. Like, I care about how far I can throw a ball rather than actually like throwing it sophisticated, like well to someone else or something. But yeah, like, when you can look at this internally, you can think about what are the motivators of yourself. Are you more motivated by family and friends? Are you more motivated about being able to have power and control over certain situations? Or are you more motivated for being able to work within certain circumstances and to really do well, like get really good at your arts that you do there? And whether that's like, sales, or whether that's like painting, it could be anything. And I thought this was also interesting because I see so often like there's all these discussions around, oh, money can't buy you happiness, or like there's just a lot of there's a lot of people out there who will say something like, oh, money can't buy you happiness, actually the real pursuit of life is to enjoy being with your friends. And then there are other people who say, yeah, your friendships are important, but if you don't have any purpose to your life, then there's no reason why, like, there's no good thing to do. I have a friend who I've said these things before, because I'm very much someone who wants to make things, produce things, which I suppose is maybe an element of achievement. I always want to make things and show them to the world. But for him, he just doesn't feel motivated necessarily by that. He feels the only motivation he finds at the moment is through affiliation, like spending time with people. That's what gives his life meaning. And so I think that this is really important because it shows us that you don't really, like, there's so many people online who will say, no, I tried this route, I tried this thing and it didn't work. But it doesn't have to be a universal thing. It could be that that's just not something that works for them. And you don't need to put that universal power on everyone else, because it might not work for everyone else. And yeah, multiple people could be right, therefore, if you take a view like this, that yeah, like it isn't that you have to only be motivated by helping others. It doesn't mean that you have to only be motivated by making money, or like watching the number go up, or it doesn't mean you have to only be motivated by like working hard, or any of these things. It's just that some people will want more of one than the other. It's not really something you can be right about. You can only be right about whether you see yourself by really how you really feel you are, if that makes sense. So I thought that was a really interesting one. And then if you also want to flip that as well, and you want to see how you can motivate other people, you can understand that other people in the world are motivated by different things. And the example that Pete something or other in the project management course, he's a fantastic guy as well. It's great to hear his everything he says. But he says that, for instance, when you're walking past people's cubes in the like in a what's it called, like in a workplace, you will literally just be able to see there what people are motivated by. People who are motivated by affiliation, they're going to have pictures of their friends and family. And then people motivated by power, they're maybe going to have, like, I don't know, a certain certificate of like their position in the hierarchy at the workplace. The people who have like maybe a sense of achievement, they're going to maybe have like awards for like doing particular work and stuff. So, and the important thing he points out is that if you, let's say you wanted to motivate people and you wanted to give someone a reward for being like the best person in a thing, if they're more motivated by affiliation and you give them like some money rather than like some days off, they might not really care. But if you were to be like, hey, well done, you've worked so hard this time, we'll give you these days off, they're actually going to be far more motivated to then try and become the next what's it called, like they're going to become employee month for month the next time. And that's why people aren't motivated by things, and like that's why rewards don't really work. It's just because you're not appealing to the right things for the people. So one of the things he says is also that you should when you're going to reward someone, give them multiple options, because then they can just decide, and maybe give them an option in each of these categories. And yeah, that's why I put a little present up there. So I thought that was really interesting, because yeah, it's like strategic. And again, we'll see in this next one, this theory X and theory Y. Now, that was to do with like ways that people, like what people are motivated for. But these are theories about how people will work if you kind of, like, what's the relationship that you have with them. So theory X is your very typical, like bog standard, very pessimistic view of humans, which is that everyone's lazy and doesn't care about doing any work, and the only way that anyone will ever get anything done is if you use power and coercion and force. And so this is like the sergeant drill method of just like, you have to listen to me, there's no other alternative, I'm going to make your life so much worse if you just don't do what I say. And that's been like a very typical viewpoint that's there in society, but it's also kind of a bit of a miserable one. It's probably the one that's going to potentially lead to a mutiny, and it's also one that's kind of fairly cruel as well. There is more to life than just running away from things. You can run towards things in life as well. And in my own personal opinion, I find a lot more motivation in running towards something that I enjoy and being able to gain that, rather than running away from something. And I've spoken about that in other videos and stuff, but yeah. But then theory Y is kind of the opposite, and it's also equally as flawed. It's the kind of hopeful, naive, optimistic view of like, oh no, if you just let people be, and you give them a really good environment, and they're going to fulfill their purpose in life, and they're going to do good to society. But this is also misguided as well. There's always going to be people that are going to kind of freeload, or they're not really going to see how they need to like impact the world. I used to hold to this quite a lot, thinking that, oh, the only reason why no one bothers contributing to the world is because they just don't see that they're effective. And maybe that's still the case. Maybe it is. But if you just stuck to, say, a why method, and you just like, it might not always work, and people will take advantage of it, kind of looking at the short-term gains rather than the cohesiveness of the whole society. Like if you gave unlimited amounts of food to a group of like 100 people in the wilderness or something, there are them, well, and I can't determine. I was going to say like there's going to be some freeloaders in there, but I don't know. Like, I'm not in that situation. But you can understand why this is maybe a bit too naive. There are going to be times when people are going to want to slack, and especially if you're like in some kind of corporation that's having to compete with other corporations in order to like produce more capital than the other to overtake each other's markets. You're gonna, from the standpoint of those people who are above you, they're gonna want you to not just maybe necessarily let them have an easy time all the time. And if you don't give them like an easy time all the time, then you're probably gonna get fired. So no, if you do give them an easy time all the time, you're probably gonna get fired. So yeah, why doesn't really work as well. And this is why I think it's so effective, because in my own opinion, and this is incredibly broad statements, but you can kind of get this general sentiment as well in politics. You have the kind of naivety and optimism of human beings that and then you've got the kind of more brutal pessimistic views. Like it kind of emulates the oversimplified and stereotypical views we have of people like Thomas Hobbes and people like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, where Thomas Hobbes would say man is an absolute animal and we need laws and we need systems there in order to constrain him, because if he's left to run wild, he's going to destroy and rip up everything that's holy and sacred and good about the world and beautiful. And then you also get the other viewpoint, which is the Jean-Jacques Rousseau viewpoint, which is again a simplification, but it's that kind of viewpoint of no. What's terrible about the world isn't the people, it's the laws and regulations we put on them. Those are what have made people into these beasts. And if we would let people exercise themselves freely and do whatever they want to do with their lives, then they're going to just, they're going to live really happily, and everyone's going to be singing Kumbaya, and everyone's going to go, yay, we're all so happy. And yeah, now obviously I don't think that his political philosophy is probably just that. It's probably a bit more complicated than that, but that's the oversimplification we often get in society about these two viewpoints, and they're oversimplifications of reality. What I really like about this next one is the idea of situational leadership, which is that it's kind of like both of these are right, and you just need to apply them at different times. Again, it goes back to this same old message that I was just still saying the other day, like a couple of minutes ago, which was with McLeland. It isn't that there's only one thing that can really motivate people and that like is the best thing for their lives. It's that different people require different motivations for their lives. There isn't this universalistic way that we can minimize human experience and then just say yeah this applies to everyone without it going wrong, because we've minimize the whole of the human experience into like some specific traits. So this idea is that in certain situations with certain people, you need to act in different ways. So when most people join your company, they're going to be hopefully quite motivated, and they're not really going to know much. They like most likely they're not really going to know much. So your role as a Oh, and also, yeah, like again, if we applied this internally to ourselves as well, we can also understand this as well. You know, it is good also to be able to motivate ourselves by, you know, pushing ourselves away from what isn't good, and it's also good to motivate ourselves by kind of pushing ourselves towards what we want. There is no reason why we need to only be motivated by scaredness, but also we may not take corrective action on our own lives if we're only just happy about things. There's a lot of motivation out there that is that, you know, like, for instance, thinking about if you have a child, people say that when you have a child, it lights a fire underneath you because you're thinking, shit, like I've got to look after this, I've got to look after this creature. And that's very much like a kind of scared, kind of somewhat like Theory X kind of view. And so, yeah, it's good to instead actually look at it in this way. And this is also where we start to introduce the idea of competency into all this as well. Because if someone's incompetent or has low competency, you're going to need to direct them quite a lot. There's no reason like to get annoyed and think, oh, they should know this, or but they don't. It's okay. Like if it's really that bad, then you'd have to fire them. But the circumstances are what they are. And so if they have low competency and yeah, they're just coming in, then you need to direct them around a lot. You need to tell them what to do. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And then as they develop and as they get better, their competency is going to go higher, and then they're going to be in a position where they can do the work on their own, but they might have a couple of like things that they don't, that it's like, oh wait, this is a new situation. Does this way that we've been doing it still apply here, or is it like something else that I do? And so that's when you need to coach them, and you need to like tell them about these other positions as well. This also might be where you kind of maybe also mentor them into new positions that they can have. And then as they gain more and more competency as well, that's when you then support them, and you go up to them and you go like, hey, you know, like, do you need anything in this situation? Like, is there anything that like that you don't fully know and understand about this? And you provide them with that. And here you're also kind of giving them that viewpoint, which is, oh yeah, like he isn't constantly on my back now. Like he actually trusts that, or she, that, you know, like I can actually do a good job. And then the final bit is delegation, and that's where you just go, hey, I know you can do it. I know you're so good at this thing. Go and do that thing. Now, I suppose that's how you'd act with influencing other people. I guess how you do this when you're influencing yourself is to think something along the lines of, it's to understand where you're at on that stage. And in the next video, I will show you something which is actually very, very similar to this, which are these two kind of concepts here: consciousness and Bloom's view. But that's spoilers, and you're gonna have to find out next week. So yeah, see you all next week. Love you.